Hey everyone, Will Curran from Endless Events back again with Sarah Soliman. Sarah, I'm so happy to be sitting down with you because you are literally crushing it so hardcore in the industry and doing so much amazing things. And we want to talk a little bit about leadership. And you have a lot of tactical advice for young leaders and young women leaders in the industry for how we can make an impact and start to get involved and be ready. And I wish I had been able to watch this video when I was getting into the industry years ago when I was young. So I'm gonna ask you all the questions. I'm gonna travel back to what it was like when I first joined the industry and all the things I would ask. So let's jump in with the first one. So tell us a little bit about your history maybe in becoming a leader really briefly, and so everyone can get an idea of where you've come from and where you are now.
Sure, yeah. Well, one, thank you for having me on and giving me this platform. I think the conversation around leadership is so important, and I have such a heart for young leaders, but then in particular, women in leadership positions. So for me, starting into the industry almost 10 years ago now, which is a little weird to talk about.
Totally.
It makes me, now I'm like, oh wait, I'm no longer that totally young person anymore. What just happened? But I started in the industry almost 10 years ago. I've always been a reporter, if you will, in the industry, and people always viewed me as like that video girl, you know, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't only the one that was gathering content or capturing content, but also ensuring that I was becoming a thought leader. It was such a big goal of mine. I've watched so many phenomenal, both men and women, lead in this industry, and I wanted to also have a voice and show other young people that you too can have a voice in this space. You just have to kind of go for it. So I started working for a different production company. I left them after about 4 years or so. They were my introduction into the industry, which I'm super grateful for. Started then my own business about 4 years ago now, and through that really found my confidence, found my voice, found my path, and also found a home in this space. And with that, just wanted to do more with it.
I love it. I love it. And now you are now president-elect of your MPI chapter in Orlando.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there's many more things to come. Then there's the next level, board of governors, it goes on and on and on. So let's start to give some tactical tips for everybody out there, who maybe someone who's just joined the industry or someone who's felt that they really want to get involved in leadership somehow, not necessarily just MPI, but maybe they're another chapter of a different organization or even just a leadership position within their company. What sort of tips do you have for them?
Yeah, I say, first off, really figure out what your strengths are. I've always known what my strengths were, and I'm a people person. So I know that I can sit down and have a dialogue like this, and it's real and it's authentic, and that's just part of my strengths, right? So I thought that this would be a good opportunity for me to then, grow my network by volunteering. And when you volunteer, you automatically enhance and increase your leadership skills. So I made a conscious decision that I was going to add this volunteer component with MPI in my agenda, on my calendar. I wanted that to be part of my fabric, my foundation, my personal and professional development. So I made that conscious decision. So again, figure out your strengths, utilize it, and the best way to do that is really, I think, through volunteering, because then what's happened through my volunteer work is that I was able to take that back and implement it into my day-to-day work life, and it's made me a better leader in my business. And it's also made me a better leader with my clients. And it's given me a sense of confidence. My network has grown. I've learned my leadership style, what works for me and what doesn't. So that would be, I think, my main piece of advice is just figure out what your strengths are and then really play into them in a role that maybe is not your career just yet, through volunteer, whether that be with MPI or a different industry organization, because that really is where you can kind of make those mistakes, and it's a little bit more forgiving, and you learn more about yourself too. I've learned so much about myself. And then through that, again, that confidence builder is so important when it comes to leadership. I started off as a volunteer. I was the VP of marketing and communications for MPI Orlando chapter, and then I ended up just kind of jumping the gun, and I applied for the president-elect position after just serving on the board for 1 year. And
awesome.
Yeah, and I did that because I just felt inclined to keep serving and serving in a selfless way, which I think is another important component of leadership. And then from there, now I'll be, the incoming president and all of that. So it's just been a spiral effect of awesomeness that has happened around me just really understanding what my strengths are and then implementing them into a volunteer position.
Oh my gosh, there's so much good stuff to unpack in here. But first of all, using awesomeness as a word, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think really, you actually said it. What I was thinking as well is the fact that when you're a volunteer, you definitely do get some like wiggle room. It's Play-Doh. You can make mistakes and it's way more forgiving. Whereas, if we make mistakes in our jobs, we feel like, oh my gosh, am I in trouble? Am I gonna is this gonna affect the business? But in volunteering, yeah, you get to try out new things. You can say, for example, yes, I've never held a leadership position in marketing, but I'm really passionate about it. I'm gonna go and do this, or I want to learn more about this tool, or for example, I love when people say I want to get in the industry, and I'm like, become a membership director of a chapter, because you have to talk to every single person and convince them and sell them into why they should join. So you're naturally working on your sales skills all day long. I love that sort of thing. I think also important that you kind of hinted at this idea of the calendar blocking too. Actually physically taking up some time on your calendar to be able to do this. Do you have any sort of strategies for people who say, I'm probably too busy to put leadership in my agenda and maybe not time block it in. I just literally have no time. And I know that seems like a very common thing, especially if you're new in the industry, because there's just so much to do. What's your suggestions for that?
You have to really want it. It is a commitment. So although it is a volunteer position, you have to know what your time limitations are, and if this is something that you really want to hone in on, if it's something that is really important to you, then you're going to find the time to make it happen. I've had to sacrifice other things in order to say yes to becoming a leader in the industry. That was something that was part of my goals, I should say, and I wanted to go after it so badly that I, again, made the conscious decision to find time on my calendar. Juliet Funt, who has spoken at MPI, actually at IMEX America a couple years ago as part of the MPI keynote lineup, talks about finding white space on your calendar, and I love that. And she's always in my head when it comes to how I block out time on my calendar. It's important to have white space, which means your time to rest, relax, reset. And for me, which is super weird, part of my way of kind of decompressing is by volunteering back into the industry and working on my personal development and my professional development. That to me is my white space outside of my day-to-day hustle and grind in my work.
Ooh, I like it. And I think definitely white space can be defined for different people. Some people, it might be like, I just need to lock myself literally in a white room and not talk to anyone. But it's awesome that volunteering is for you. And I find the same way too. It, especially if you're doing a task that isn't normal related to work, that creates great white space as well. Because far too often, right? I'm sure when you were doing Marcom for your chapter, you're like, man, I do marketing all day, I do content all day. It didn't feel as much like it, but now that you're doing the presidential stuff and things like that, that might feel totally a different release.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So something else I want to mention is I volunteer on a local level, but then MPI sent out a notice, hey, apply to the entire membership, apply for our international boards. Okay, so
Ooh.
I remember getting that email and I was like, am I ready for this? Should I take this leap? And I told myself, you know what, go for it. The worst they can do is say no, not yet. I went for it. I applied for the Global Board of Trustees, which supports the MPI Foundation, and I have a seat at the table now. And I'm sitting with amazing leaders in our industry that, have a few years on me, but that's the cool part, is that they're giving me a chance to voice my opinion. They're open ears, and I, again, have a seat at that table. And even more importantly, I am hopefully inspiring other young leaders, particularly women in our industry, to just go for it if it's something that you want, and it helped me kind of conquer that imposter syndrome as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely want to talk a little bit about that imposter syndrome, because I feel like it's common everybody. Everyone has a little bit of it in some different relationship. What other sort of ways can people kind of leap forward beyond the imposter syndrome?
That is so tough. It takes a lot of self-reflection and kind of throwing yourself out into the fire. That's what I did with this international board stuff. And then I also co-chaired the MPI Women's Advisory Board, which is also throwing myself into the fire, because here I am as a young woman alongside my colleague Courtney Stanley, who's, we're the same age, we're both in our early 30s, and we're leading women that have more experience, more knowledge, more just time on earth than we do. Holy imposter syndrome, right? But they, again, trust us, and they are allowing us to lead in our style. And I just think that you just kind of have to find your sweet spot and that confidence, and to know that you may be young, but people still want to hear what you have to say, because your perspective is always going to be unique to somebody in the room, regardless of age, gender, religion, whatever. So everyone has something valuable to offer, and I think that's how you kind of combat that imposter syndrome, is when you really start to understand that you have something valuable to say, and it's going to stick and resonate with at least one person in that room, and that's all that should matter to you.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Just the one person. That's awesome. I think you bring up a good point. The idea that a lot of it's driven by fear too, and the idea is like, look, what's the worst that can happen, right? They say no, not yet, right? And I think that's a huge, great advice. I also definitely agree with you on the people want to hear your opinion as a fellow young person in the events industry. People, when I'm going on being part of boards and organizations, you feel like you're really, the imposter syndrome sets in. But then what you realize is it's the first time someone says, well, we really want to hear what you think, Sarah. And you're like, and you think to yourself, me? Like, really? Like, and then you realize that everyone does really value our opinion. And I feel like, and maybe we can talk about this really briefly, is that we really do need to start voicing our opinions as well in the organizations, in the associations, because they're definitely ever changing. We always talk about the value of an association now, and, people our age, I guess, am I allowed to say that?
Totally.
Say like, well, why do I need an association? There's social media, I can connect to what I want. But then we have to think, well, the only way it's going to change is if we get in it. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about how we can voice our opinion and lead into the associations as well.
For sure. I think one of the most upsetting and disappointing things in a lot of the membership organizations, including MPI, is that members don't do the basics, which is respond to surveys. That's how associations like MPI gauge your satisfaction in education and content and networking and all of the great benefits that an organization like MPI has to offer. So you are investing by being a member of an industry organization into your future. The least you can do is voice your opinion through surveys, which oftentimes can also be anonymous, right? So if you're that person that's like kind of more under the radar, that's the way to voice your opinion. But if you're a little bit more vocal, like you and I, again, apply for these boards and serve on a local level first, and take the certification courses that are readily available to you to enhance and just work on your personal and professional development. And if there's something within those courses that you feel could be improved, changed, different, whatever, voice that to the right folks, which in this case would be the MPI team or whatever, right? They want to know. I mean, this is a membership organization, and they want to know how they're doing, because they're here to serve you. And I learned that. MPI is willing to listen to me as a member first, and they have made changes based on my recommendations here and there. Whether it happens overnight or not is not the point, but they're working and constantly working towards improving the experience, which then makes my experience way more valuable and beneficial. So yeah, the value of associations are incredibly important. And if you're going to invest money, time, and energy, be an active member and use your voice regardless of age. I actually think that young people tend to be a little bit more vocal. We're like, well, we're going to tell them how we feel, but then you've got young people that are also coming in and they're like, I don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want to step on any toes, or it could be very intimidating sitting at a table with, all men that have been, in the industry for years and years and years. But again, you have something valuable to say and share, do it, because you're only going to make the experience that much better for the generation that comes after us.
Oh my gosh, such words of wisdom for sure. Is there anything else that you kind of want to add that you want to share with the audience when it comes to this topic of leadership? I know you're very, very passionate about women in events as well, which I'm definitely going to link down below your episodes on event icons and all the interviews that we've done with you, because they're just absolutely phenomenal. I think everyone needs to see them. Anything else that you want to kind of add that you think everyone needs to know about?
I think I just want to leave with, saying that if you are watching this and you are a young person, particularly a woman in our industry, don't second guess yourself. And if you ever do second guess yourself, have a support system around you that is going to push you to get over that imposter syndrome, get over your insecurities, and really encourages you to go for it. This is not like a just me project kind of thing. My leadership did not just happen because I made it happen. It happened because there's a lot of support around me that is really strong and solid. And find that organization that really resonates and sticks with you. Take those programs that the organization has to offer and start to hone in on your skill set. You've got this.
I love it. I love it. And I know that MPI has a course all designed. I believe it's the Women in Events course, if I got that right.
Yeah, it's actually a women's leadership course.
Thank you.
Yeah, women's leadership course that has been brought to some of the chapters, but there's a ton of stuff on the MPI Academy that you can partake in. And yeah, I mean, it starts with you. So utilize the tools and resources that are readily available, like certification programs, to work on your leadership skills first. And then that way you're going to be better equipped to be a servant leader in whatever kind of, organization you want to volunteer your time with.
Amazing. Sarah, it's always such a huge pleasure to get to talk to you. I wish we could do it for hours and hours and hours,
Yeah.
but you're very busy.
I am busy.
Because you're leading the industry. Thank you for all of your servant leadership and all you do for MPI as well. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you so much, Will. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.